but yeah, so that eventually that business pursuit landed me in jail. But it's so interesting to think now that it could have been a completely different path. Although obviously
Sure.
no regrets. I'm glad it all happened. I still remember when my mother and my sister came to bail me out. They drove all the way to Virginia, and I was on my way. I was driving back, and I still remember there was this super strong storm, like those storms where you have to like slow down to like 20 miles per hour and put your
Sure.
wipers on and you can barely see
Yeah, yeah.
anything. And I still remember having like this biggest smile on my face, like while that was happening. And all I could think of, like when I recollect, when I think of back to that moment, I just think of it as like my baptism to like the new life,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
That was the rain that was just cleansing me and then getting me ready for that next life.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Journey to Legacy. I am your host, Mr. Wayne Veldsman, and today I have for you Patrick Pychynski, the founder of Stacking Capital. They're actually a consulting firm that specializes in helping business owners secure up to $500,000 in business funding, and then actually up to, I think, a $5 million credit line in small business loans. They're really taking a holistic picture at credit and interest and funding for individuals and businesses. They actually have now helped over 300 businesses secure a total of over $170 million in financing. Tons of it is actually 0% interest. The episode today is really, really great. Patrick has such an interesting and unique story. Everything from building computers and being a barber in high school to joining the Marines and starting a business with his dad until he, spoiler alert, actually ends up in jail for simply kind of some misinformation that he didn't know how to appropriately take out credit lines and business loans. If only he had known then what he knows today, he never would have gotten himself into this situation. It really wasn't anything that he did himself that he did wrong or badly. You're going to enjoy it a lot. There's tons of actionable advice. I highly suggest take some notes today and really enjoy the stories. So without further ado, Mr. Patrick Pychynski of Stacking Capital. Patrick, thanks for being here, my friend.
Thank you for having me, Wayne.
Yeah, pleasure. Tell everybody a little bit about what you're up to.
Definitely. Uh, Before I begin, though, Wayne, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you and the way you just consistently bring valuable action and strategies to your podcast and to your listeners. Just wanted to tell anybody listening right now to make sure that they leave a comment, make sure they're subscribed, because you're making a difference in the world here. So
I
just wanted to
appreciate
put
it,
that out there
man.
really quick.
I appreciate it greatly. I appreciate it greatly. Please, we're here to focus on you.
Definitely. Yeah. So, Wayne, you know how one of the biggest problems entrepreneurs have is whether they're building a brand, launching a product, or even just scaling a service, is that
Mm.
they don't lack ideas or hustle. It's just that they're moving slow because they're relying on their own income or their own savings to fund growth. They they don't realize that they're sitting on an invisible toolbox. And that
Mm.
invisible toolbox is 0% interest business credit. So that could unlock anywhere between $50 to $150,000 of low interest capital to pour into inventory, marketing, expansion, virtually anything without having to give up equity, without having to touch your
Yes.
personal savings, or having
Yes.
any of these credit lines report on your personal credit.
Yeah.
So
Well,
my name is Patrick Pychynski, and what we do at Stacking Capital is we help entrepreneurs access immediate business funding that they might qualify for, starting at 0% interest, while also protecting and optimizing their personal credit. But more importantly, we position them with a plan for continuous rounds of 0%, but most importantly, long-term bank preferred loans with better rates and terms. There's a lot of companies out there that will simply go get you a stack of credit cards, but they won't have a
yeah.
plan afterwards for that short-term financing and what to do.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that's pretty much what we do. And to date, we've helped uh, over 300 clients secure over $170 million across nearly every industry.
Wow. Over 300 clients, over 170 million dollars of funding secured, huh? So Patrick, what do you think stands you guys apart, right? A lot of people out there listening might not know anything about credit stacking, about 0% interest credit cards. I'm somewhat familiar, right? And so there's more and more of these types of companies and organizations popping up. What stands you apart from other people that understand the credit game and getting 0% interest credit cards?
Thank you. That's a great question, and I love answering it because there's actually a lot of things and a lot of scary situations we see where you think you're going with a company that's going to help you, and they might be able to get you maybe some immediate financing, but sometimes you don't realize that what you've just done has delayed the ability for you to maybe access the longer term better financing, like either SBA or just better terms from the bank. Because what people don't realize is 0% interest business credit cards is a great way to start and grow your business, because again, at 0% you're typically looking at 1% of the balance to service that minimum payment. So let's just say you're using $20,000 of that line, your monthly payment is going to be about $200. But what a lot of these credit stacking companies don't tell you is that the 0% is an intro period for 12 months. And even if they do tell you that, they often won't have a plan for you after that intro period runs out. So that's what makes us very different, because we understand that there's about 20 products that might be available for certain business owners in terms of immediate access to funding. But we want to work with you on what we call getting you bankable, which is getting your business compliant for those better rates and better terms. Because again, you don't want to have to continue to get 0% every 12 months when you could just go for a product or a loan that's designed for your business with terms up to like 10 years and better rates.
Oh wow, interesting. Okay, so the difference that I'm hearing here is the plan afterwards, or the almost a little bit of a different end goal to not just continually use 0% interest credit cards. Like you said, usually have, 12 months, 15 months until you have to start paying everything, and you get 25% interest on them. And so it's actually this,
Exactly.
you called it getting you bankable.
Bankable, yeah. And the problem is like this is the reason why over 90% of companies, when they go to a bank, they get denied, is because they're not bankable. So, your business might be able to qualify for business credit cards, but again, if you're thinking long term, you're eventually going to want to access something better, something with longer terms and better rates. And if it could be, there's a lot of little things that a bank will deny you for before they even pull your credit. Because anytime Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or Chase wants to pull your credit, they have to pay Experian, they have to pay Equifax or whatever, right? So they have access to a bunch of data and APIs that could pretty much do a business scan, very similar to what our software does now, uh, to see if you might even pre-qualify before they even pay Experian or Equifax for the credit report. And these are things like having a commercial business address, having a website with the right NAP score, which is a name, address, and phone number, right? If they can't find you on Google, or if you have 2 stars on Google Maps, the bank is going to see you as a much higher risk or much more likely to default, right? If you have a not non-professional email address or a home phone number, home address, these are all things, again, the banks have data and they know that, hey, when you have these things, you're more likely to default. Not to
Wow.
mention, when a bank approves your loan, they're typically packaging it up and reselling it to a bigger financial institution. So a lot of times you're not getting denied because of your credit. You're getting denied simply because of one of those 20 compliance items that are not in check with your company. So even if your credit is good, if your business is not compliant, they can't sell the paper. And that's why you're getting denied 90% of the time.
That is so interesting. Nice. Already, we're a couple minutes in. I'm already learning. I gotta love that. So business credit, right? When someone starts their first business, right, files their first LLC, it's still a year old. Like, where does business credit originally come from? It's personal credit that it plays off of, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because there's also a lot of controversy and misinformation around all of that. So oftentimes you'll see online people talking about no PG or no personal guarantee business credit.
Nice.
And the problem with that is that if you're looking for actual cash credit with no personal guarantee, this really only applies for businesses that are doing a million plus in revenue, have been around for 2 to 3 years, have their tax returns, have cash reserves, um, and have business credit built out. But for a normal person, that's what I always say. If you're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, you're not going to have to personally guarantee for business credit, but that's because your business is already established. You want to almost think of a new business as like you co-signing for your kid when they want their new car, right? It's
That's
a
true.
brand new entity with its own 9-digit number, like a SSN. It is considered its own person, non-living person.
Interesting.
Um, and at the beginning, what you do, again, what we want to do is access any immediate financing that you have available. And most
Mhm.
oftentimes it's 0% interest business credit cards. Um, and most of that, we're leveraging your personal credit to obtain
Sure.
business credit cards that do not report on your personal credit. But like I talked about, once we get that initial round of funding, most credit stacking or funding companies stop there. What
Yeah.
we want to do is, again, make your business compliant, make your business bankable, and have that 90-day roadmap plan so that, number one, you can continue to get more 0% funding with higher approval limits, but also have a plan for when that short-term financing runs out and you have like either an SBA loan or a long-term loan that goes out 5 or 10 years and with better rates and much better repayment terms, basically.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. You are definitely the 'cause I'm not super deep into space. I got a little pretty deep into it in the past, actually. But you're the first one that I've ever heard talk about this longer term, right? After 90 days plan, or even just mentioning, eventually getting business credit lines that have 10-year long repayment terms, right? Totally
They also go up to
different.
5 million.
And they go up to $5 million is what the loans are that you can get, huh? Wow.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Yeah. Man,
that's what we want to do. The zero
sure.
percent credit cards was never the end all be all. It's
No,
really just meant to be that igniter, that fuel to the fire, especially if
sure.
you already have a good business or a good side hustle. It's
Sure.
just meant to leverage a good proof of concept or something good you have going for yourself.
Interesting. Okay, so you're leveraging that good proof of concept, is what you're saying, right? It's starting there, but you want to have a bigger, longer goal, actually, this getting yourself bankable. Patrick,
Exactly.
let's rewind a little bit because you have a super interesting story, right? So that's a good amount about what you're doing today. We'll touch on stacking capital, is what your company's called. We'll touch on it again here in a little while. But where did um where did this all start, man? Were you always sort of business oriented, entrepreneurial?
I'd say so. When
Yeah.
I was really young, I between my brothers, my sisters, we always yeah, I was always either sketching things, selling things. I remember in high school doing bartering and selling. I was literally cutting people's hair. I was cutting my own. So
No
there was
way.
always that. Yeah, I was assembling computers at 14,
Wow.
and helping neighbors with their network and their internet connection and stuff like that. Um, so I would say there's always been that there. And then at 17, right after high school, I joined the Marines. That's something I've always wanted to do since I was really young. Since I was like 14, I was sending those little postcards to sign up for the Army, the Marines. Finally, ended up going in '04, graduated high school, went straight into the Marines. Shortly after, got deployed to Iraq. And then
Wow.
when I got back, I got presented with opportunity. My dad and my uncle actually was in New York at the time and had gotten into the metal recycling business, more specifically recycling the precious metals out of the catalytic converters. And
Interesting.
me and my dad decided, hey, this is a good opportunity. And it was definitely the right timing because not a lot of people were doing it. It was specialized knowledge and not a lot of people doing it.
Sure.
Um, so we went to work, did that for a couple of years. We're doing really good, pretty much cornered that market really good. And then a few years later, my dad passes away from stage 4 skin cancer.
Oh,
The plan was always to open up a metal recycling yard with an actual like brick and mortar location where we can have contracts and other uh, businesses pretty much send their materials over. And about a year after he passed, I was pretty much finally able to open that. At the highest point, we actually had two locations. One was in Monroe, North Carolina, and one was in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I'm very happy to have accomplished that after my dad passed away. But one of the
sure.
reasons I like to bring up the metal recycling business is because at its highest point, we were grossing $2 million in revenue a year. And I did not know anything about business credit. So like most business owners I work with now, like they don't either. So they're working with
Yeah.
their cash reserves, they're working with their savings. And it's just really hard because it's like, yeah, the money comes in really quick, but it goes out just as quick too, right? And
Yeah.
I kept trying to wonder is like how are my competitors like able to scale, buy out companies, buy this beautiful up to date equipment, and it was all through other people's money, through the bank's
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. It's all right. Well, I have a few things that I need to dissect here, right? Interesting that first off, right? You said you're pretty entrepreneurial growing up, cutting people's hair, helping people with their computers. But and then you went to the Marines right after high school. You said you always wanted to since 14. If you can think back, I mean, what 14-year-old wants to go to the Marines? Like, where did that come from?
Shoot. I don't know. I would think everyone does, like, like a cop, firefighter or something, but I don't
Sure.
know. I would say a lot of it was the influence of my dad.
Yeah.
He wasn't a Marine or served in the armed forces because he actually escaped communism when he was right
Oh,
around, I think, 20.
okay.
He couldn't even let his parents know or anything. He just everybody in his family thought he was just leaving to school or something. Never
No
came
way.
back, couldn't tell them because it was communist
Wow.
back then.
Wow.
um yeah, so everything I know about the credit really wasn't from him either. And I understand,
Yeah.
like so many people, we grow up with such misconceptions or ideas about credit, like don't
Definitely.
use it or
Sure.
or yeah, so that was me basically, where I never necessarily had bad credit. It just wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily optimized to
Sure.
unlock business funding. And most
Yeah, it's like this
people,
very
that's what
old
they're
school mindset, right? It's just old school. I think you said your dad, right? So what,
money under
immigrant
the
from Poland,
couch.
right? There you
Yep,
go, right?
exactly.
Save it,
Money under the
like,
couch. Don't claim so much in taxes, this and that, blah, 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 right? But
yeah,
it's the opposite, actually.
it is the opposite. And so you guys got into Marine service, unbelievable, man. And then you got back, and what you and your dad immediately decided to get into this business. Was he already running other companies, or how did that like decision making process happen to like jump into your first business? A lot of our listeners are new entrepreneurs, and so I'm always curious
Got
about
it. Yeah.
the mindset about getting into it.
Yeah. So I guess how I've always naturally had that mindset,
Sure,
because I started so young that I don't think of like when was my first business. I just started
sure,
conducting commerce, right, at a
sure,
very
sure,
young
sure.
age. And I think my dad was the same way too. I mean, he was a mortgage broker when all this was happening, but he always had side stuff going. Like
Mm.
he would always go to the auto dealers and flip cars. That's something he loved doing.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so he always had that in him as well too. He's very resourceful and always, I guess, a hustler, if you wanted to call it that.
Sure, dude. That's great, man. Like I said, he was always mortgage broker, but always doing other things on the side also. And it's wonderful that you got those traits from your dad. I like to correlate that to a lot of times the importance of like mentorship and like coaching and who we surround ourselves with is so important. Because like you almost don't even remember like when you first got into business, you're always conducting commerce. If you really think about it, right? It's like somewhat attributed to your dad, right? Who you surrounded yourself with.
100%. I mean, I he saw I like building computers. He had a friend at the time, those were more popular, but he had a brick and mortar computer store that would build
No
computers.
way.
So over the summer, I went to work there as well. I was building the computers, but I also got to work on the front end dealing with clients, trying to sell them on custom build computers and things like that. So yeah, I would say a lot of it definitely comes from my dad. And I mean, I still remember too hearing stories of him going back to Poland after it wasn't communist to pretty
Okay.
much do some commerce there. And
No way.
I don't know the details. I don't know all he did there, but I know that he was moving around.
Nice, nice. Stay moving, stay hustling. And so you guys get into this metal recycling, right? Of the catalytic converters. You said you were still pretty early days in that entire business. Unfortunately, that your dad passes away and you guys sort of had this dream together to open up bigger recycling plants, create a bigger business, right? What was sort of the reasoning for going that direction versus, I guess, what you guys were doing previously?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, it was more of an old friend of my dad's.
Mm,
Really more back then, they're like paisanos, they're basically family. So that's why I call him my
beautiful.
uncle. But he started to get into the metal recycling, but more specifically the recycling of the precious metals on the catalytic converters. And I mean, in terms of why we got into it, the money was just insane. Like it was
Beautiful.
we were making like $40 to $70 off of each catalytic converter that we would buy.
Okay.
And we would pull up to junkyards, and oftentimes they would have anywhere between 50 all the way up to sometimes 2 to 3,000 pieces.
Oh, wow.
And on those higher quantity, we would still probably average on the lower end of like $40. But again, it was just one of those things where we had the knowledge on which converters had the actual precious metal, and we were just early to the game because shortly after that, like people started to ask, do you guys take batteries, do you guys take this, do you guys take that? And same thing, we were super early. I still remember the first time we were like, sure, we'll take them. And I think we
Yeah.
bought the batteries for like $1 a piece and ended up
Oh,
selling them for $7 a piece as scrap
oh,
metal. So
nice,
it was
man.
like really good. It was a no brainer. Like we just needed to, we went to visit him in New York, saw the operation, saw the cash just coming in and out. And we're like, definitely no brainer. Let's do it. All you need
Wow.
is a pickup truck, start going to the cycling yards and picking stuff up.
You don't know what you don't know, right? And then being early on is also important. What do you think? I mean, how important is it, let's say today's day and age, being being an early mover, an early adopter into a business?
Yeah, I think there's a balance, right?
Mm,
For most people, like I don't want to start talking about all this and then have people think like, they're in the middle of a decision making process and now they're getting persuaded to not do it because they're not early to the game. Sometimes not being early to the game is actually a really good thing. Sometimes having competition in your space is a really good thing because it tells you that there's actually demand for the product.
nice,
So
well
I don't
said.
want people to dismiss that automatically, but hey, timing is everything. Like you see this whole thing with the AI thing. It's like
Mm, mm,
if you could be one of the first, you're going to do well, right? I
sure,
think timing definitely is one of those things that help make things easier, right? It's
sure.
where it's like if you don't even have to be the best. If you're the first, you don't have to be the best, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think hopefully that answers that. But I'm actually more on the side, and I have like what they call like a. Oftentimes people tell me I'm like my head is in the sky,
Nice.
because I'm more of like a big thinker, and then I take it back and just try to break it down into little steps. But I'm more of the guy that leans on going towards something that's proven, right? It's
Definitely.
like there's almost anything that exists here on Earth is nothing new. It's just sort of like a different spin or angle on it, right?
Nice,
So
well
that's
said.
that's I think what most people should, especially if you're just starting out. I say don't be a pioneer. Go look at what's
Nice.
working and make it better. And then from there, basically, even if you're not better, even if you're just the same, people will interact with you and your brand over another brand just because they resonate with you more. And if you're in the
Well
right
said.
business with the right amount of competition, then there's more than enough for everybody to go around. And a good example would
Yeah.
be like my industry, for example. I
Yeah.
I I love connecting with other people in the industry. Number one, because there's not too many good players in it, and two, because there's more, and we all think the same too when I connect with like-minded individuals. There is more than enough business to go around, at least in my industry. If we're talking about businesses, business owners, there's more businesses than people in the US. So if we're talking about businesses that need financing, there's no way that I'm going to be able to capture the whole market.
No, great. I mean, having that abundance mindset is super important. And I'll just, reiterate like the advice that you sort of gave, or just your perspective, right? Is that you by no means have to be a first mover in an industry. For running your first business, it's almost better to not be, right? Because then it is proven there is a problem, a need, and a solution. And now you can simply just work to make it better. But always, if you can be first, right, it can be super helpful. One interesting anecdote, I spoke with a intellectual property and a trademark attorney, the call right before you and I started chatting. And he told me that how he explains intellectual property to people is that they're like, well, is this even a new idea? I just feel like I'm piecing together other people's ideas. And he's like, everything that I do every single day is piecing together the same 26 letters of the alphabet into different ways and combinations. And so to all have a different end result. And that's how he explains to people what can be patented and trademarked. Like most stuff isn't brand new unless you're creating a new mineral, a new element out of thin air, creating matter. But yeah, it's all pieced together to create something that's
That's so
different
funny.
value proposition almost.
Yeah, that's interesting because like I said earlier, anything under the sun has pretty much been invented already. It's just a new spin or angle, and it's
Yeah.
like literally legally that applies as well.
Yeah, absolutely does. So Patrick, so I know your story's about to get a little bit more interesting, right? So you said you're growing the business, right? The metal recycling plant, right? You guys are doing 2 million a year in revenue, using just all your cash reserves. You don't know about credit yet. Uh, but correct me if I'm wrong, I think you decided to somehow take a little bit of a loan, or did you not?
Yes, yeah. So 2015, 2016, commodities start to crash. Copper, platinum, palladium, even gold, all that stuff, right? But my expenses, my overhead, upkeep, everything's still the same. My employees. Um, so it's one of those things where they were hard times going from like being in a ridiculously good industry with good profit margins to just the commodities taking a complete dive. I had taken a $20,000 sort of loan or line of credit from a small at the time metal recycling yard in Virginia, small
Okay.
town. I think it was called McLean.
So they're not like a
And
competitor, like a colleague almost.
colleague, bigger yard that I would essentially send truckloads to. Mhm.
Okay. Nice. Nice.
So it was
Continue.
a $20,000 line of credit. They wired it to me because I had already done business with them.
Beautiful.
About 2 months later, they call me in to say, "Hey, you got to come in person to sign this contract." And mind you, that's 2 months after I received the wire. I had already done about $250,000 worth of business with them with that money.
Nice. Nice.
Um, yeah, and then so that's 2 months later. Then 6 months later passed by. The commodities, like I said, they take a crash. Everything's going bad. I give them a call. I let them know right away. Listen, right now, if you were to ask me for the $20,000, I am not going to be able to give them to you. I'm currently selling some equipment because at that time, what I was going to do is downsize and just stick to focusing on the catalytic converters, the precious
Sure.
metals, instead
Sure.
of just doing all of it.
Nice.
Um, so that opened up the can of worms because basically, as soon as I called them to do that, well, shortly after, I end up getting arrested. I end up finding out that the contract I signed 2 months after I received the wire and I had sent over $250,000 worth of business to them, that if I didn't give the money back to them within 48 hours of them requesting it, that it would be deemed a felony. I was young at the time. I was in my early 20s. I had signed it. But the most funny and crazy thing about this whole story is that all of this could have been avoided if I had known business credit. Because
You
that
know
is,
about business credit.
isn't that
Dude.
crazy? Like we're talking about just a $20,000 credit card, you know, okay,
Yeah,
no problem. Here's what I owe you. And then all I would have to
of
do
course.
from there is basically pay $200 a month to service that minimum payment, which is
Yeah.
typically 1% of the balance.
Yeah. And even after
So
that's
it's
over, right? If you default on it, you're still not going to jail.
That's the thing too, right? Worst
Yeah.
case, which again, $200 a month is nothing, right?
Yeah, of course.
But again, if I was to default on a credit card, I most certainly wouldn't go to jail, right? So
Yeah.
it was very crazy because I was in Charlotte at the time. They were in Virginia. They came and got me on a governor's warrant, and they held me for 30 days. Legally, they're only allowed to hold you for 30 days. So they held me exactly for 30 days. And again, I highly suspect, it's almost like not even suspect, but I have a feeling these guys told him like, yeah, let them just sit there for 30 days and pick them up on the last day. Because again, this was
Wow.
a small town. They weren't able to even really operate completely out of there. From going to that to literally like employing half the town, they pretty much own that town. So I was
Oh my
there.
God.
They held me in Union County Jail for 30 days, and while I was there, it was everything that needed to happen, honestly, because I still remember having this shift in there of like, like when you're in there, you're like, I don't know when's the next time I'm eat. I got to eat everything. I don't know when, you're in a sort of like not an abundance mindset, right?
Of course, of
I still
course.
remember going through that shift. And yeah, I started to read the book Awaken the Giant Within with Tony Robbins.
Tony
I
Robbins
started to
book.
work out in my little cell, and I started to realize that everything around me started to change. My bunkmates
Wow.
started to read that book. My bunkmates started to
Wow.
do push-ups with me. Um,
Wow.
he started to make a plan for when he was getting out of there. So it was sort of like the beginning of everything, right? Instead of thinking, oh, I got
Wow.
to eat everything, like I started to
Yeah.
only eat the things that I wanted. And then I just started to get smart and trade people out for other things, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that eventually that business pursuit landed me in jail. But it's so interesting to think now that it could have been a completely different path. Although obviously
Sure.
no regrets. I'm glad it all happened. I still remember when my mother and my sister came to bail me out. They drove all the way to Virginia, and I was on my way. I was driving back, and I still remember there was this super strong storm, like those storms where
Yeah.
you have to like slow down to like 20 miles per hour and put your
Sure.
wipers on, and you can barely see
Yeah. Yeah.
anything. And I still remember having like this biggest smile on my face, like while that was happening. And all I could think of, like when I think of back to that moment, I just think of it as like my baptism to like the new life,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
That was the rain that was just cleansing me and then getting me ready for that next life. And like I said, I started to read the book, started shortly
Yeah.
after listen to Bob Proctor. That's when
Nice.
I started my marketing, well, not marketing agency. I'd say I started more as a freelancer with the marketing
Sure.
stuff around 2016.
Yeah.
Um, and then shortly after, I started to actually work for a martial arts organization that really helped kind of turn the page and get me on track because the CEO of that martial arts school was uh, was definitely a mentor that I've been
Nice.
asking for in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the rest from there is history. While I was working that W-2 job, I learned a lot about running an organization, managing teams, making high ticket sales. We were selling a lot of these parents $12,000 programs. So
Nice.
everything along the way has really helped me and prepare me to do what I'm doing today. And I like to
Yeah.
say my clients are me 2 years ago, not knowing
Nice.
anything about business credit, getting themselves in a pinch that could potentially even cost them their freedom
Yeah.
because they
Wow.
don't know about something so valuable like business credit.
Man, you don't know what you don't know.
Tell me about it.
Patrick, yeah, right. I don't need to tell you, dude. How crazy, man. That I wonder why this company that extended you the $20,000 line of credit, right? Why they decided to, okay, you know what? Immediately, we're gonna call this in. We want it right now. Who knows? I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if you know what the answer is. Why they decided to do it right then? But it's crazy that you say like that ended up being the best thing for you was to
Oh,
go to jail for
100%.
30 days, right? Change your mindset, get you out of the business that you had been building to pivot you to transition into where you are today, huh?
100%. Yeah, no regrets whatsoever. And like I told you earlier, actually, my good friend, mentor, and CEO of Up Level Martial Arts ended up writing a book and including that excerpt in his book as well.
Dude, I love it. So here's an interesting thing. Let's just touch on this for 1 second. So then you mentioned, right? So you get out, you start doing marketing as freelance, right? You're sort of learning more about that space. Then you got this job as a martial arts instructor. right? And at the time, you told me earlier that you didn't want this job because you realized that it's going to be trading your freedom for it. But it ended up being really important, right? You kind of got this physical mentor, in-person mentor also. If you can, think back about like how did like the conflict feel about let me trade, I'm about to trade my freedom for a job. I don't want to have a job, but like ended up that job, the job propelled you into new levels. Because I think entrepreneurs sometimes are afraid to seem like they failed or they're taking a step back when actually it's going to propel them forwards.
100%. And I think if you've been in entrepreneurship long enough, you'll realize that there is that fine line of sometimes doing that, like taking 3 steps forward and taking 4 steps back, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not a straight line up. And a lot of times too, I tell people it's like there's this I know online there's this like hustle culture of being an entrepreneur or leave your job and all that stuff. But I'm also with agreements, and it tends to help a lot too with the funding stuff. If you have a W-2 job, keep that for now. Get everything
Yeah.
get everything up and running. And there's nothing also wrong with being what they call an intrapreneur,
Mm.
right? Because being an entrepreneur is hard. It's almost impossible, to be honest with you. And if yeah, it's almost impossible. Like if you're not an entrepreneur that's good with people and managing people, you're going to have a really hard time being an entrepreneur. And being able to run all facets of the business, right? Like the marketing department, the sales department, the fulfillment department, the operations. It's just almost impossible. So there's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur. And I would say that it's almost part of the process of being an entrepreneur. I
Yeah.
don't see, I think there are some people that jump into entrepreneurship
Yeah.
and not prepare for it at all. But I would say entrepreneurship is a good sort of
Define
segue.
define that for us. What's entrepreneur?
Yeah, again, like maybe helping somebody grow their business, right? Like teaming up with either a small startup company or something, being in a role where, again, you're working with the company more than working for. And even if that's not
Nice.
specifically the case, in terms of what you're getting out of it, you should pretty much go in, and it just depends on where you're at in life, right? But I always tell the young guys, like, don't focus on money, how much you're going to get paid. Focus on the network you're going to meet and the skill sets you're going to unlock from that job.
Beautiful.
Because again, every little thing stacks up, and that's what overall ends up preparing you to be a better entrepreneur and prepare. Because, like I said,
Yeah.
in terms of deciding to go work for somebody, what made it really easy for me, I still remember, is I had a piece of paper and I made a line down the middle. Reasons why I should go work here and reasons why I should not work for the martial arts
Yeah.
place. And the only reason I was doing this is because the CEO, the owner, had caused such a great impression on me. I was like, I don't know if I want to work here, but I know I want to keep this guy close. I know I want him as my
Nice.
mentor. And I still
Nice.
remember, I don't even remember the reasons why I wanted to work there. I just remember writing the reasons I didn't.
Mm.
And it was only one. It was basically my freedom. But
Yeah.
I had just literally gotten out of jail. I was ready to turn the page. So I thought back and I'm like, you know what? Right now, freedom isn't what I need. What I need is to be
Sure.
around a good group of people that are going to elevate me and hold me to a high
Nice.
standard. And I need a mentor. I'd been praying for one. So I went there, and I still remember telling him too. I'm like, my plan is not to work for you, but to work with you alongside you one day. And sure enough,
Beautiful.
towards the end of our tenure, um, I was actually his regional sales manager in charge of all his 6, 7 locations. And we were working on a lot of things, pioneering a lot of the systems and things we were doing to grow the business. So,
Sure.
and we're still really good friends till now. He actually
That's
exited
great.
that business, sold it to each
Wonderful.
individual operator. Because at the time too, he got on a podcast, Bigger Pockets podcast.
Yeah.
He's been a
Nice.
real estate investor for a long time. And after that podcast, sort of he kind of blew up and went full time
Sure.
with his coaching offer.
Oh, that's great, man. Good for him. Yeah, getting around to bigger pockets. That's wonderful. Honestly, just so everybody else just make sure they heard this, right? So you decided to go work as the martial arts instructor. You told him, my goal isn't to work for you, it's to work with you. You became that entrepreneur, right? You actually helped to grow another business while you learned all these like entrepreneurial skills. I mean, you already had a lot of them in you. You'd already ran other businesses by yourself, but still, it was this opportunity that you saw and seized to get mentorship, to get around a community that was going to propel you forward. You helped to grow somebody else's business while, correct me if I'm wrong, you started to actually grow stacking capital on the side at the same time, right?
Well, that wasn't until 2021 when Clubhouse came around, but it was my marketing business that I was growing.
The marketing
Um,
business. Yeah, I
yep.
got you.
And it's funny because yeah, there's so many things that I could attribute in terms of skill sets that that job helped me with. But one of the big ones I could say in terms of like a sequential thing was
Yeah,
the sales, that
nice.
consultative sales process, which then helped me to get on those Zoom calls for my own agency. Now it's like
Beautiful.
normal, right? Getting on a Zoom and talking about your product, like that's
Sure,
nothing for
sure.
me. But I still remember looking back at like my first Zoom sales calls, right? And it's
Uh-huh.
like, gosh, but the martial arts consultation sales process helped me with that. And then
Yeah.
that all those Zoom calls that I did for the agency went on to help me for the stacking capital and a bunch of
Nice.
other things, right? But
Of
yeah, it
course.
just sort of goes to prove the point of like entrepreneurship is hard and it's a lot of
Yeah.
different hats. And if you're not good with creating teams, managing teams, um,
Mhm.
it's not a bad place to start. Being an entrepreneur,
No.
working with a founder, working with a startup team, and being a part of the process.
Yeah, learn, right? Learn. Be part of the process for somebody else until you decide if you want to eventually pivot out. And so, talk to us a little bit about the pivot that happened. How did you get into the credit space now, right? So, there's so much backstory. It's so interesting. Like I said, all these parallels of like, oh, you never would have gone to jail if you just known about this. But tell us, yeah,
Right.
where did the pivot start to happen, huh?
Yeah. So that's fast forward to 2021, Clubhouse, this sort
Clubhouse.
of voice chat room app comes
Yeah,
about. And I guess it gets very popular because of COVID, everyone's locked down and everything.
sure,
And
sure.
back then, literally, you needed like a invite from somebody to get in. And at the time, there was a lot of big people in those rooms, like Ty Lopez, the ex CEO of T-Mobile, Virgin
Yeah,
Atlantic, Grant
yeah.
Cardone. So I was literally just like a fly on the wall. And in one of
Nice.
those discussions, they start talking about business credit, and it
Mm,
just sort of blew my mind. And I'm the type of person that when something piques my interest, I lose track of time. Like
nice.
I will deep dive and research everything, right? So that's what I did. And naturally when I'm learning something and I feel it can help somebody else, I get really excited naturally to share what I know, right?
Right,
So
right.
that's how it started. I started as the guinea pig. There's just so much misinformation out there. There's people that are might be good at personal credit, but they don't know anything about business credit. So they're giving you their expert advice based off of their personal credit expertise.
Mm,
Or
mm.
there's people that know credit stacking, but don't know a clue about getting your business bankable and ready for long-term financing. So now they're giving you good advice based off of just short-term financing with no long-term plan in place, right?
Sure.
So yeah, so that was like the big thing there. And I kind of lost track of what I was saying there.
No, man, no, that's great. Like you said, right? So you actually started learning more from other people, right? More mentorship. I think this is like almost a pretty great theme that we've sort of hit on here today, right? Keep learning from other people, keep pivoting, keep being curious as well. And so you started learning more and more, and then you also realized that there were a lot of sort of shortcomings, people that were just focused on personal credit, but they were trying to give advice about business, right? Just understanding credit stacking, credit card stacking, right? All the short-term 0% interest, but they didn't have the long-term plan in place. And you're using yourself as a guinea pig to like keep figuring it out, keep building.
Exactly. Yeah. So some of this information could just be flat out wrong, flat out illegal.
Yeah.
And some of it, like you won't really feel the effects of it until later down the road where you're like, oh, what do
Sure.
I do now? Or, oh, I can't get an SBA loan now because the previous funders wrecked my file, right?
Yeah.
So so it was a lot of investing into
Okay.
private mentorships and things like that. And
Nice.
and then just fast forward a little bit after just helping friends and family. one of my high school friends I end up reconnecting with at the time is working for an e-commerce company out of Miami. They and this is sort of what made me realize there was a real need for my specific solution and program was uh, they had invested into a $10,000 course. It's still around, still one of the good ones. Um, and they had their own funding department, but they were still contracting me out to pretty much get their clients funded.
Oh,
So that's when I
interesting.
realized I'm like, wait a minute, they have a credit department. They've invested $10,000 into this course and they're still paying me to underwrite and come up with the funding plans and get their clients funded. And then I started to realize I have access to that same course. I see the people in there struggling every day, day in and day out. And I started to say, like, I've seen this. This is a recurring theme. Like, people are paying thousands of dollars for this course, thousands of dollars, and they're still lost.
Yeah.
So that's when I got the idea of like, you know what? Like, this is what I told myself. I still remember saying it at the time. If all I need to do is get in business and serve my clients right, like if I just serve my clients right and don't do any of the BS they're doing, I'll be fine. That, and obviously there's a lot more to that involved to doing good in business, right? Unfortunately, no, people don't just come to you and realize you're the good guy, and that doesn't happen, right? But I still remember thinking that, and that's kind of like what the whole idea is my client is me 2 years ago, right? Somebody that, whether they have a business or not, um, they know they want something, they have an idea, they want to scale something. Um, they don't need to use their savings. They don't need to beg their friends or a partner and lose equity. They don't need to use their personal credit, because I see a lot of people do that too. And now, and then that's another sort of sequence I see with funding companies too, is they'll sometimes go for a personal round, and now the order is out, right? So they go for a
Mm,
personal round and now they can't go for a business round till maybe 6 months to a year out. So
interesting.
I see a lot of people do that, as they use their personal credit cards to either, invest in their business, buy ads, payroll, whatever, and
Of
now
course.
they're constantly dealing with the fluctuation of their credit, and then they can't get approved for any more funding, financing, or anything else.
Business line, interesting. So it sounds actually like you going the business funding route first. Business credit cards is better than going personal route first, right? It sounds like
Oh,
that's
one hundred
a
percent.
simple tip, what I just heard.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you're gonna plan an actual stack out,
Yeah,
I would definitely recommend starting with the business credit cards first, and then
yeah,
the personal credit cards. One of the
yeah.
good things about 95% of business credit cards out there is that they will not report to your personal credit report. So
Oh,
the only thing you have left after the application sequence is the inquiries, which we then
mm,
remove for
mm.
you. And then the rest is pretty much, there's no trace of that credit card ever being on your file. You could have that card
Okay.
maxed out and it would not affect your personal credit at all.
Oh, wow, that's
Now,
wild.
just a little disclaimer, if you do, let's say, default on that card, or start paying, start having your payments come in late, then that can start that derogatory information can start to report on your personal credit. Just a little
Gotcha.
disclaimer there.
No, great. Appreciate it, right? And of course, we don't want that to happen to absolutely anybody, right? Let me ask you
Exactly.
a little bit of a different question here, right? We start to sort of wrap up here, getting towards the end.
Sure.
There's a lot of skepticism around business funding and that credit is the way to go. Try and try and convince me here, right? Let's pretend I'm super old school. Like, no, the money in the bank is the money that I use, right? It's like credit is a bad thing. I'm gonna, I don't want to owe anybody any money here, right? Well, how do you get over this skepticism around business funding, right? It seems like it could be too good to be true.
Absolutely. Well, the best thing I could say is that credit in itself was originally designed for commerce, right? The reason why I think we look at credit in such a bad way is because we tend to associate credit with consumerism, with consumer credit,
Nice,
right?
nice.
So it's like, let me put this trip on the card. Let me put this expensive item that I really want and don't need on a credit card. Let me buy this that's not going to create a ROI, a return on investment,
Yeah.
with a credit card. Originally, credit was just designed to be arbitrage, right? It's like, hey, if I borrow $100 and I need to pay back 102 and I sell the product for 107, I made $5. That's
Nice.
simply all it is, right? So if you're looking at your investment, if you're looking at the funding as an investment, then I'd say it reduces a lot of that risk. Although in life, period, and in business, there is always some risk, right? But
Yeah.
I would think that at the end of the day, I would rather lose $100,000 of someone else's money than my own hard-earned blood, sweat, and tears, heavily taxed, earned income of $100,000. Because at the end of the day, let's say all else fails, you still have your $100,000 in the bank. And for that person that didn't care about credit to begin with, well,
Sure.
now all you have is a bad credit score. Nobody's coming after you to arrest you. Sometimes creditors might try to sue you and stuff,
Mm.
um, but everybody's credit, everybody has a second, even third, fourth chance with their credit in America.
Mm.
So, what you know, it boils down to: would you rather lose $100,000 of your super hard-earned money that's been already taxed and cut 25% by Uncle Sam, or $100,000 of the bank's money and a bad credit score that could be repaired within 1 to 2 years?
Yeah, that can be repaired. Interesting. Okay, so it's a good way to think about it, right? Especially when you have another chance. And
And I will
thinking
say
about how,
this though,
go ahead, go ahead.
half of it's mindset. The thing is, none of this can happen if that person's mindset has not been changed. And
Mm.
I get a lot of that is my job too, partially to
Yeah,
get them to see the way we look at things in terms of finance and leverage.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, you can't save everyone, right? And
no,
we can't get them the funding if we still don't make that monumental mindset shift of, hey, all credit is leverage. We're not talking about consumer
leverage.
credit. We're talking about business credit, which is essentially just leverage, right? Which is
Yeah,
essentially just
love that.
arbitrage.
Nice. Love that. Well said, right? Because if you're doing all this and you're still using your credit to buy TVs or sneakers, right? The whole thing goes out the window, right? It needs to be
Exactly.
arbitrage, right? It is all about commerce, um, making more money based off of this investment that you're getting, right? Pulling out.
Exactly.
And so, Patrick, talk to me about a little bit more about stocking capital. I mean, what's next for you guys, and who you ideally sort of working with right now?
Yeah, that's a really good question because, obviously our dream client is somebody that's already an established business owner, maybe for a
Mm.
couple years. They've done their taxes, they have revenue, and we can help them scale to that next level. If they haven't unlocked SBA or seven-figure type of funding, that would be our ideal client. But that doesn't mean that that's all we work with. As a matter of fact, based off everything I told you today, we want we want to accept anybody. Anybody that has a credit score and is an American citizen can join this program and eventually unlock funding. The problem is that most people want funding yesterday and they want everything tomorrow. So most people, when they get on the call with us, we do a pretty good job at letting them know, hey, these are your available financing options right now. This is what we can get if we start to work on your credit. This is about how long it might take. The rest is
Yeah.
up to you. Do you want to do it with us? Go fast and start on it now,
Yeah.
or and then usually it's or wait longer, be in the same situation a year from now. And unfortunately, a lot of people take the latter just because, again,
Sure.
they want it yesterday, uh, and yeah, and just aren't really thinking about maybe 30 to 90 days out from now.
Yeah, goes back to that mindset shift, right? It's like you can't convince everybody, and like they have to decide that, you know what, this makes sense, right? This is actually arbitrage. That's the whole purpose of it. When you look at it that way, it's a good thing. If you look at it as just like, oh, let me just do have a ton of credit for no reason. I have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with it. Then it's probably not the best idea, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing too is, like, most of our clients not only end up getting funded, but end up with a stronger personal credit profile by the end of this too. And
Nice.
there's a lot of things that you can do to leverage your credit when it's good.
Yeah.
And this is aside from actually having a business, right? So, for example, your credit cards have authorized user spots on them. You could sell those spots. Um, Typically, people will pay, like the market rate for those is anywhere between $200 to $400 for you to add people on your credit card as an authorized user to help build their credit. They won't
Oh
get
wow.
access to the card or anything.
Yeah.
Um, and there's actual third party companies out that will help facilitate that and sell those trade lines for you and keep everything safe and secure. But that's just one
Interesting.
way that you could leverage your
Yeah.
good credit without actually having a business. There's another
Yeah.
thing we have, which is called like a buyer's group method, which is either for people that don't necessarily have a business, or we're looking to do a couple things, whether that means increasing the limits on our personal credit cards. Because a lot of times, if let's say somebody wants a high limit credit card on the business side, we need comparable credit on the personal side. But if they
Oh,
don't
sure.
have that yet, we actually have strategies to help them get there. And there's something
Yeah.
called a buyer's group method, which is basically if you wanted to increase the limit on your credit card, one of the ways you can do that is by starting to put massive spend through that card. The
Mm,
algorithm will justify a credit limit increase. But most of the
nice.
time, in order to do that, you have to spend a lot of money. So
Sure.
there's platforms out there that allow you to basically buy things off of Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart at a when they go on sale, and these platforms will pretty much buy them off of you for anywhere between 1 to 3% above retail. So
Wow.
basically, what you're doing is it's allowing you to purchase anywhere between $5,000 to $25,000 worth of product from Amazon and Best Buy, and it's allowing you to sell it at a 1 to 3% markup above retail,
Nice.
and then that company is paying you via ACH. So
Oh,
it's actually killing a lot of birds with one stone. It's allowing us to pretty much increase the limits over time through massive spend without it costing us money. It's also creating ACH deposits into the business accounts that we have you set up. So that's creating that internal relationship with that bank that we want to target for 0% credit cards. And then it's also liquidating your credit into cash for free without having to,
wow.
code it as a cash advance with that 29%
Yeah.
APR fee. So there's strategies for
That
everybody,
is
regardless
wild.
of where
Yeah.
you are in the process. It's
Uh,
just a matter of wanting to do it and wanting to come on board and be with the plan,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Some
of
people can get
course.
funding as early as 15 days, and some people it's going to take a while because they're actually
Sure.
not ready for funding. They need credit repair first, credit optimization.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's all super dependent, right, on what people need, right? And so what's kind of first or next steps for somebody, right? Because it sounds very dependent, right? Some people might need credit repair, right? Some people immediately they have a long-lasting business. Other people might need this uh, group method or, to buy a lot of product and get these ACH transfers. How do we know um, what should people
Yeah.
do next?
Yeah, so just really quick too, so they know the guidelines sort of,
Yeah.
we're typically able to get somebody business funding, go straight for business funding and get them, anywhere between 50 to 150,000, sometimes even more in 0% interest business credit within that 30-day mark. If they usually fall within that 700 plus credit range, they
Sure.
haven't opened too many new accounts in the last year. So no more than 3 new open accounts in the last year. They have no negative items, no derogatories, and their utilization is under 25%. So that means their revolving debt, their credit cards are under 25% utilization.
Okay. Good to
That
know.
will put them in the range of going for immediate business funding right away. If you're below that, again, we can still work with you. A lot of times, if you're like in the 650 to 700 range, it could either be like an old collection or utilization issues that we're working with. And same thing here. A lot of the times, they might not be in position for business funding. There are things we need to do on the personal side. And sometimes that involves credit repair, but it also involves a pay down strategy. And we
Mm,
help them with that too. So a lot of times
yeah.
do we have no other choice but to either tap into maybe home equity, business revenue, or personal income to get a loan to pretty much consolidate that revolving debt. And what that does is basically the next reporting cycle, that revolving debt is paid down. So that revolving debt counts for 30% of your score, which is the utilization. So if we're able to
Mm,
cut that down and put it into an installment loan instead, most of the time what we're able to do is not only consolidate that revolving debt into a fixed payment with lower interest, but also their score usually ends up shooting up and puts them in position for that business funding that we're looking to get next.
The amount of knowledge that you have on like the different pathways that somebody can take or needs to take is super impressive, man.
It's the
It's really,
fun part.
really, really impressive. Yeah, right. Having the strategies to know all the different routes to go and then which works best for somebody else.
One of my favorites is building profiles from scratch. Like
Oh
when
yeah.
people that have no credit, either like they might have a kid or something, those are so fun to build. But again, I don't come around those too much because again, most people want things tomorrow and don't have the patience to stick through that. But I have had a couple of clients in my past, 18, 19-year olds. We start from scratch, have their parents add them to one or two authorized users, and then start with credit unions with their secured products like
Uh,
secured installment loans and credit cards.
uh,
I did that with one 18-year-old that was in the martial arts place. His first credit card approval was over $10,000
Wait, nice.
at 19.
Dude, at 19, immediately banks like, we trust you with 10 grand.
Exactly. But it's because we
Dude,
went through all the steps.
of course, of course. Yeah. And I'm sure in those steps, right, it's also like financial knowledge of like understanding what to use this money for, what to not use the money for,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah,
Also,
for sure.
yeah. I mean, so Patrick, there's a lot of things that you're teaching people. It seems like you are really empowering people to understand finances, right? The way that people think about money and creating generational wealth. For you, man, what do you believe is like the difference that you're working to make in this world, right? The whole show is called Journey to Legacy, right? So I'm trying to basically asking you, like, what does legacy actually mean to you? What's the legacy that you're looking to leave on this world?
Definitely. No, it's a good question. Like I shared earlier, I think I've always we talked about the entrepreneur stuff. I I don't see myself as an entrepreneur, right? Like I just am, I guess.
Yeah,
But in terms of the coaching thing, that is something that I could like literally say myself that anything I'm passionate about, I enjoy sharing with others. And this is something that I've decided I'm going to be in for a long time. Uh, and in terms of the future, so right now we have planned exactly what we're doing. We just literally invested a bunch of money into software that helps kind of cut the noise. So if somebody, let's say, didn't even want to talk to us, they can answer 20 question form. We call it a success scan. After they answer those questions about themselves and the business, we'll be able to actually generate a 2 to 3 page report that will go over exactly how much funding they might have access to right now and what they might need to fix on their credit report to access more. So in terms of my future plans and what I plan to do as far as legacy is
yeah,
scale this as far up as I can go. In terms of a long term, again, I told you I'm a big thinker. There's a lot of stuff right now. I'm working with a developer with the help of a lot of this no code software that's coming out now too. We're working on some software to help bring this to market. Just more of a mass market adoption in terms of business
nice.
finance and getting access to business funding in the form of maybe an app
I love
and a
that.
low ticket price. So that's sort of my long term plan and vision. But for now, we're really focused on growing this product, this offer here. We just recently added more funding advisors to the back end and focused on just getting them trained up and ready to serve our clients at the highest level.
Dude, you guys are growing big. All the stuff in the software space too. That's super exciting, right? There'll be like a lower ticket offer, actually, a lower price point that people can sort of work through themselves. I guess it's right. It's going to do this success scan. Was the success scan already live that people can
The
go
success
to
scan
do
is
that?
already live. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the success scan is live. And again, what I wanted to do something special for your audience and those listening is basically if you go to stackingsuccess.com, you could access the scan live. Again, it's about 20 questions, but that's going to give you a very detailed report as to the amount of funding you might be able to get now and the changes and optimization that you might need to do to your personal credit to access more. The software that we have planned for more in the future is really, like you said, more of a even more of a freemium thing where a lot of the features will be free. Again,
Sure.
a lot of what I do here too, I tell everybody a lot of the resources I put out are free. So like you could literally go to stackingcapital.com, or I'm sorry, stacking.capital/blueprint. And you have my entire 45-page ebook on my entire process. I want to put it all out there. What you're paying for is really our time and that one-on-one guidance when you work with us.
Patrick, you're definitely changing the way that people think about money and the way that people use money. It seems to me like that's going to be a huge, huge legacy that you're going to leave, right? A huge difference being made in this world is thinking about money differently and how to use it appropriately. Awesome.
For sure.
Nice. Patrick, appreciate it. So you said stackingsuccess.com is where that success scan is?
Exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Nice. And then if they're looking for more one-on-one help, guidance, consultations, I'm guessing they can go that path as well.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Yeah. So what I meant to say is, yeah, for your audience in particular, what I want to do is, again, stackingsuccess.com. You can go there, answer 20 questions. It's going to give you a very detailed report. And from there, I'd also like to include a free strategy funding call for you to go over all your options. That way you're just not lost looking at this report, wondering what's going on. We can go over it with you. Again, completely optional, but for you and your audience today, if they wanted to book a call and get on the phone with one of our advisors to go over their options, that I'd be more than happy to do that.
Patrick, appreciate it, my friend. Stackingsuccess.com. I mean, I wrote down here stacking.capital/blueprint also to get that PDF. So much free value, just so much value in education in general. And like, dude, we really, really appreciate it. Thanks for your time today, my friend. Like, I'm so excited to see what you do in the future.
Thank you, Wayne. Thanks again for everything that you do here.
And that's a wrap, everybody. Please let me know what you thought. How interesting of stories did Patrick have? What a cool thread throughout the entire episode of you don't know what you don't know. A big thread around needing mentorship and learning, right? Patrick learned so much from his dad in early days. And then actually when he was in jail, he learned from books and listening to other people and watching podcasts and and videos by Bob Proctor until he got out, became a martial arts instructor, and now he found another mentor. Then he even paid for mentorship. Everybody, take it from Patrick. Take it from me when I tell you that surrounding yourself with the right people is an absolute game changer. That's what we are working to do in Journey to Legacy and in the Journey to Legacy community. Come visit us over at journeytolegacy.org and join the community of like-minded individuals that are all working to support each other to grow personally and professionally so that we can keep moving forward and actually make a meaningful difference in this world and leave a lasting legacy. Come check us out over at journeytolegacy.org. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Wayne Veldsman, and I will see you soon.